Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek, and welcome to our annual Way Too Early Draft Preview. We're taking a quick look at the 2023 NFL Draft prospects. We're going top heavy, and we're going QBs for a couple years in a row. And it's the draft. He's very involved in our draft content, whether it was down at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, our draft streams, the football Grump. But Justin, how are you doing?
Hey, Bobby Skinner. I'm excited to just hear you and our friend, the football Grump, kind of just go at it with some prospects way too early. 2023 draft. I'm excited. The football Grump, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Man, I am great. There's nothing quite like rounding out draft coverage with more draft coverage. So, but this is good because this is kind of, I'm still doing this stuff anyway, watching the USFL, and I was already doing this for our own show anyway. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be talking draft stuff because I always am.
Yeah, we do the Way Too Early Draft week for a couple of reasons. We're doing offense today, by the way, and then we'll do defense for Friday's episode. Is one, it's June. It's hard to find good content without just repeating, like, hey, do you think Daniel Jones can make a jump? You know, not having the same conversations over and over again. But also it forces you to get, like, have some guys you're watching for during the season, you know, because we're so wrapped up in the NFL season. It's hard to, you know, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm not super wrapped up in college football on Saturday to watch an occasional game. And even then you're not super focused in on like one prospect. So I think it's a good exercise to do. And the last couple we've done, this is our third year doing it. We got Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau off of last year's.
Ooh.
And then the year before, Quincy Roche, he was on our Way Too Early Draft preview. So we've had, over the last 2 years, 3 of those guys have ended up being New York Giants.
Love that. Love that. Where's your background? It fell.
It did fall, and I forgot to put it back up.
Where's the hope sign?
That's been, that thing's dead and gone.
It's been gone? Missed the hope sign.
Actually, no, it's right here.
Wow.
It's right here. Before we get into the draft previews, we have to talk about some big news about a prospect out of Ohio State. Justin Hilliard suspended 2 games for PEDs.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that was, you know, this is the 6 weeks where it's like, don't do anything dumb, don't get in trouble. I'm kind of hoping this was that dumb thing we got out of the way with Justin Hilliard.
No.
What he was taking is it wasn't a steroid. It was a drug used to mask steroids, and then he blamed it on his wife.
I hate when I get pills mixed up with my wife. I hate it.
I don't believe him at all, but part of me did feel bad, like calling him out that I didn't believe him at all, because what if he's telling the truth? But I mean, 99% of these truth is like these guys are just making it up. Like there's no way an NFL linebacker happened to mix up drugs with his significant other, and that drug also happened to be a drug that's known for masking steroids on a steroid test.
I hate when that happens. I'm still hoping for a little arrest.
Stop.
A little one.
We don't want bad things to happen to people, even if they are the 80th man
bad.
on the roster.
No, victimless, just little teeny tiny taste of something.
No,
get the adrenaline pumping.
Counterpoint to this, Justin Hilliard does have a better chance of making the roster, though, because he wouldn't count against the 53-man. That's always a talking point. Like, remember Ryan Anderson got busted for PEDs last year, and they still ended up cutting him.
Chess, not checkers.
Honestly, don't care. Grump, do you have anything on that before we get into the draft preview?
I feel bad for him. He's also full of shit. And if he's not, it kind of doesn't matter if he's lying, because as an NFL player, you need to know what you're putting in your body. So if you grab the wrong pill bottle, you should be quadruple checking it's the right pill bottle. I mean, it could have been, let's just say he's telling the truth. It could have been narcotics. I mean, what the heck? Who knows? So I don't really care. And also it's Justin Hilliard, so I wasn't really banking on him making the roster. So whatever.
Yeah, I don't think hasn't even been like discussed in like roster bubble talks. All right, before we get into the draft preview, this episode was brought to you by Brett Brooks, which sounds like a country singer's name. Justin, who is this country singer?
Brooks and Dunn, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, too many. Went to patreon.com.
That's the Brooks and Dunn song you decided to use?
No, it's Luke Combs, but Brooks and Dunn is featured on it. It's the first thing that came to my head, and it was fun because it's a countdown.
Scumbag.
And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you can go to patreon.com/talkinggiants. For $2 a month plus some other tiers, you get to hang out with us live while we record the shows. Get to hear our backdoor conversations that we have about these draft prospects. And you got Bobby Skinner will send you some stickers, magnets in the mail. You know the deal. Patreon.com/TalkingGiants. Love ya.
I was very close to just doing a remake of Red Dirt Road and like filling it in with Justin Hillier. It's like, where I mixed up my first drugs and it masked my steroids. It's where I got suspended.
I tore the commissioner's letter to pieces.
I know.
There's a Shania Twain song in there somewhere that you can
all right, let's get into the damn draft preview.
Your drugs don't impress me much.
All right, quarterbacks. We're starting with the quarterbacks. Now, I know this is going to bother some people, but we're not going to do Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. For a couple of reasons. Those guys are the consensus top 2 right now, but everyone watches a lot of Alabama and Ohio State games right now, and there's not going to... Everyone kind of has their opinion on those guys. So I kind of want to wait to talk about those guys until this season plays out. And because those guys play in offenses that make it kind of easy at times, like very easy at times, and mistakes get hidden, I would rather wait to do that and really dive deep and not just watch 1 or 2 games, but like dive in, watch 6-7 games into it. So we're not going to do Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, even though that's who people want to hear about. For the quarterbacks, thought about doing Will Levis, but there's a lot of scheme stuff there too. Let's see him do it a second year in a row. Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami, I want to do because I'm a Miami guy, but there just wasn't enough there to get super excited about. It's got he's only played half a year though, so we're doing 2 guys who are in unique situations. We're going to do Anthony Richardson, the quarterback out of Florida, and Hendon Hooker, the quarterback out of Tennessee. I think people, don't you guys want to learn something instead of, have your thoughts confirmed or, tell us we're the dumbest people based on our Bryce Young and CJ Stroud opinions. Grump,
yes,
you co-host a podcast with the diehard Florida Gators fan, the cranky fan. Anthony Richardson, the quarterback from Florida, 6'4", 236 pounds. At least that's what he is on the roster. Didn't play a lot last year. He doesn't have a bunch of he had 64 throws in college football. 64 throws. There's guys who almost meet that in one game. Completed 60% of his passes, had 529 yards, 8.3 yards per attempt, 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, but also added 400 yards on the ground. I'm really intrigued by this guy. I really am. And we haven't seen much playing time. I think he's, with him going into the Billy Napier offense with Rob Sale and those cats, it's going to be interesting. But long story short, he's a big arm QB with awesome athleticism. If you say who's the best athlete at quarterback out of this draft class, out of those top 6-7 looked at guys, Anthony Richardson is that guy to me. Like, he's just an awesome athlete. He's a tough runner, even though he has had some injury issues, some small ones. He can make guys miss. He's not at like Malik Willis level, but he's like a tier below that as far as athleticism and making guys miss. But here's why I'm really intrigued by him, Grump, and I wanted to see what your guys' thoughts are. Arm strength is really good. Like, he puts it on a rope when he throws it deep. He makes tough throws in the tight windows. I think his accuracy is pretty solid. Like, he doesn't have any bad misses in the ones I watched. Besides, we'll talk about when chaos hits and he's under pressure. But what I thought was interesting is he goes through his reads. Like, I sat there, I watched him sit back in the pocket and go bam, 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 go through progressions. And that's not what I was expecting for a guy who we just described. And so he's got to play a lot of games this year. But I honestly think if there's anyone who can challenge for the top 5 who may not be in there right now, it's Anthony Richardson out of Florida.
Okay, so I can give some background here on Anthony Richardson, and I think you're right on the money. Last year, about midway through the season, the cranky fan and I were kind of telling anybody who would listen to watch out for Anthony Richardson. Now, when I say watch out for, I don't mean go back and watch all of his 2021 tape, because there's not a lot, like you said, and it's not very good when there is a lot for one game. So what happened here was Dan Mullen is a very regimented coach, and he's very stuck in his ways. And he had a hierarchy at quarterback, which went Kyle Trask, Emory Jones, Anthony Richardson. So Emory Jones would get some spot work in 2020 behind Kyle Trask, and you can look it up, and he would do things that only Emory Jones could do, which, Kyle Trask kind of won the job over him. He's not really what Dan Mullen likes at quarterback because he doesn't run. but Emory Jones did. Now, the problem was last year, Emory Jones just isn't very good. And there was other deficiencies with Florida all over the place. And when, Dan Mullen did the same thing where he had his hierarchy, Emory Jones first, and you'd get some Anthony Richardson spot work. And that spot work that Anthony Richardson did, where he had a drive here and there, was fantastic. It was insane. And Emory Jones would struggle throughout the year. Fans and alumni were calling for Anthony Richardson. And it reached the point where Mullen just kind of was getting criticized a lot and just was like, all right, you want him? Here he is. And just threw him to start against Georgia of all teams. So the Georgia tape, there's things to like, but overall the average fan will look at it and be like, not much there. And that wouldn't be totally incorrect, but this is a watch list, right? So this is what you want to be watching for next year. Anthony Richardson has to be there because he'll be prepped every week for the game and he won't be just sent to the meat grinder. You nailed it. As a runner, I think he's closer to Cam Newton. He's a big dude, like you said, 6'4", almost 240 pounds, allegedly. And he's not afraid of contact. I think he's very good at doing his reads. He's got a cannon for an arm, like you said. I think you even alluded to this. My biggest thing for him really this year is going to be pre-snap reading a little bit better. He does work the pocket very well and goes through his progressions, but I'd like to see him recognize blitzes a little bit more because where he starts to falter is when he's being rushed and when he needs to rush throws. That's when you start to see the accuracy dip. The mechanics and the footwork start to fail a little bit. I want to see him figure that out before it happens or, slide protection, change things around at the line of scrimmage. It's going to be interesting though, because it's going to be a totally different offense. Like you said, this is Billy Napier and Rob Sale. I'm wondering how much running there's going to be. They went out and they got I don't remember who, but they got a transfer running back. That's some insane running back. I don't know. But he is a runner. So like I said, we're looking at a Cam Newton comparable skill set here. So that's kind of what we're looking for and what we're looking at.
His development won't be by working through working with the offensive coordinator and he got to get through reads and stuff better. But like you mentioned, is the footwork gets really bad when he's under pressure. He still makes some really good throws under that, and that's where I think he may have the edge on a guy like Malik Willis, is that his accuracy is actually pretty good throughout. Even when his footwork isn't great or he's, maybe throwing a off platform where Malik Willis would struggle at times. So like the footwork needs real work. Like his feet click, it gets real skinny. And he has a recklessness to his game. And maybe that's part of not getting a lot of reps. And it's like, I got to take advantage of every single chance I get. So there was times where, hey, he's under pressure, he's taking a bad hit and he just throws up a duck. Stuff like that. So but that's stuff you can get better at, and just needs to work with the mechanics. But I think his release, I think his throwing motion is bad. Like it comes low and winds up. So there's things that he needs to work on. But I think point I'm saying is I think his growth is going to come through working with the QB coach more so than the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I would say you're probably right. Again, I think you're right. I think it is a lot of rep stuff for him. Like I said, there was a very set hierarchy. And he's a young dude, man. He's a Gainesville kid. Like he grew up there. That's his hometown. So I think he's the level of good where if that weren't the case, I don't think he ends up in Florida. I think he winds up at a bigger school. Just from a raw skill set point of view. That's the way I see it. I really don't think he's a Florida Gator if he didn't grow up in Gainesville.
Yeah, one of the things that, I guess just to add on, because we've been already talking about him for a few minutes, but just pocket manipulation, at least for me. Are you going to drift? Are you going to drift, and wait until you get hit and then try to make a big play? Or are you going to be able to manipulate the pocket, with that footwork and stuff like that? So that's going to be, Anthony Richardson has it. We've seen the explosive plays and the limited reps that he's got. We've seen it through the air. We've seen it on the ground. But, what's going to translate to the NFL and on Sunday is, can you manipulate that pocket? Can you extend plays in some ways? Rather than just solely relying on you running that way. So that's what I'm going to be looking for AR-15 this year.
You got the AR-15 nickname, which is, that's great. Even though maybe
we're a culture of violence here, right?
Yeah, it's probably not the best time to make those jokes anymore, but it is what it is. It's
part of his brand.
Yeah.
He didn't get it not copyrighted, but He's promoting
I don't know.
So Anthony Richardson is the guy I'm paying most attention to this college football season. He really is. How much does he grow and develop, Which, by the way, guys, how weird is it? Because usually these are the guys on the top of my watch list for college football season. How weird is it that it's like, oh yeah, we don't really need to focus on the top offensive tackles anymore?
It's pretty weird, but it's not like we're not focusing on offensive line at all. So
yes, but
that'll be the day,
tackle
man.
has been the spot for. I put out a tweet before the draft this year. I was like, every year that we've been doing this, which is 4 years, I've mocked the Giants to pick an offensive tackle in the first round. Jonah Williams, Andrew Thomas, Rashawn Slater, and then Evan Neal this past year. Got 2 of those guys, so hoorah.
Hoorah.
And the 2 guys I would actually maybe Slater over, I don't know. But anyways, like it was weird in this process. It's like, we'll watch the top tackles in the next draft process to, do your homework on guys. But it's like, those aren't the guys we're going to be really, like, offensive tackle is going to be our least important draft preview next year. Where it's essentially been our most important every single year.
It's been like the last one that we've done every year.
And now it's just like, this is the least important one is offensive tackle.
We'll probably do that like
kickers.
first.
So what is Cranky fan who what does he think of Anthony Richardson? Is he like all in, or is he kind of like you, where it's like watch list guy?
No, he thinks he's a badass, and so he has a different perspective from me because he is a very much college guy and he sees the guys develop, so he can recognize star talent quicker than I can, if that makes any sense. Like, he knows what to expect from a guy who's just going to come in for a drive. So when Anthony Richardson came in and just would unleash like a 60-yard bomb for a touchdown, he was like, holy shit, this kid is for real. And he would do it consistently when he came in on drives. So he's very all in. I don't know. See, here's the thing with the offense. Billy Napier is a run first guy. Rob Sale was kind of a run first guy at Louisiana. He was our O-line coach. And like, on top of it, go ahead and look at Florida's roster and name me all the wide receivers that you're going to see may have a breakout year. What is it going to be? Justin Shorter? It's not really like this isn't the Gators team from 2 years ago that Kyle Trask got to throw to. So there's that as well. I don't know that he's going to blow away the stat line, but it's going to be when you see it, you know it.
Yeah. But also, like you said, they did run a run first offense with the Raging Cajuns. But also that was, you're not,
you're not getting a.
You mentioned like the Florida receivers, like, well, the Florida receivers, whatever they are this year, is going to be a lot more talent than what they've worked with those guys. But it's also pro style to it, So yes. I think that's going to help with Anthony Richardson, where it teaches him to play in more pro style. Where some college coaches would get a hold of Anthony Richardson and they'd be like, I don't care about developing this guy into an NFL quarterback. I care about, averaging, if he went to Oklahoma, like getting 47, 48 points per game, working the scheme, finding wide open guys and letting him use his legs. So that's why I'm excited with him working with Billy Napier with the Gators.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Speaking of schemes that don't translate to the pro level,
Hendon Hooker, quarterback out of Tennessee, 6'4", 218 pounds. So I think the conversation around him is going to be tough because that Josh Heupel scheme at Tennessee is not real life. It just doesn't translate to the NFL. But if you look at him, he was a transfer from Virginia Tech this past year for Tennessee. I mean, he completed 68% of his passes, essentially 3,000 yards, 9.7 yards per attempt, 31 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and then 600 yards on the ground. Like, he has awesome numbers, but a lot of that production is from the Josh Heupel offense. A lot of one-step drops, attacking with the one-read offense. But his athleticism is really good, but he's not overly good, like, using it or dynamic. Like, he is a pass-first quarterback, he's not relying on his legs a lot. So let's just talk about like his profile. Like I said, he's got the athleticism, arm talent. I think he has the arm velocity to make all the throws and make them quickly. There's some great throws that he has under pressure and off platform. I think accuracy and precision wise, like for all the intermediate throws, it's there. But I do think he can misplace his deep balls a lot. Whether it's underthrown guys, and sometimes guys make plays on that, or they're overthrown. So I think there's sometimes where the deep ball just misses where he wants it to be. He's got good footwork with a nice base. So we'll talk about the scheme and stuff with him, but I think he can be a solid NFL quarterback. It's hard to project. And I think he's like, I think he's a solid quarterback. Like I said, with footwork and stuff. Like his throwing motion is a little quirky, but it's quick.
I also think that's a product of scheme and what is sometimes taught, because they do like play action RPOs. Sometimes you can get confused by it, but it's quirky. There's some stuff of him that's pretty quirky, like this play action stuff. You see a lot of movement in his upper body. You see weird movement with his feet. But at least with some of these, some of the throws that I saw, that I looked at, I think he's a very balanced player in the pocket. He's not too wild. I think he drives off his back leg. The QB school, JT O'Sullivan, I mean, he talks a lot about kind of keeping your cleats on the ground and driving off your back leg and, getting your velocity from there. And certainly Hendon Hooker, I mean, he does it. So he throws with guys in his face too. And that's when it helps to have good, have good footwork. When you're driving off your back leg, when you have guys in your face, you're not just throwing off your back leg and then you're trusting just solely on your arms. So I think he does well with that. It's fun to see sometimes his mechanics, and I think that's the thing that can kind of transfer over to Sunday. Yes, it's an unrealistic scheme. Yes, sometimes, I mean, you can see him overthrow, underthrow, some bad decisions, etc. But you see the mechanics, and you see how kind of cool, calm, collected he is. I think that's the thing that can transfer over to Sunday.
Yeah, he has all the talent. Like, he has the talent to be an NFL QB. He has the mechanics, so it's just like, how much does he translate decision-making wise? What did you see with that, Grump?
So talking about him as a thrower and not talking about the system at all, right? I love his arm, for starters. He can throw lasers. Really, really, really nice, tight spiral. I think he also has a nice touch pass, but you absolutely nailed it. His deep ball, it's not consistent one way or another. It's just wild. It's a little bit overthrown, underthrown, off target. That's got to get under control. As far as his footwork, and stuff, I like his mechanics for the most part. I would say that his patience in the pocket is almost scary though. I would like to, he's so patient that he's close to being flat-footed at times. I don't know if you guys saw this stuff, but like he really doesn't bounce on the balls of his feet a whole lot in the pocket. He's just kind of standing there, and when the rush kind of breaks free, there's a lot of wasted movement, like, coiling up at the knees and then kind of bursting away from it. If you've got that constant motion with your lower body, there's not as much wasted motion. You can get away from that shit faster. Otherwise, I do really like his mechanics. I think he gets the ball out of his hands very quickly. He holds it nice and high. The biggest thing, and this is going to kind of just transition us into talking about him in the scheme. It's a super one look offense, and that's fine, but you can see the panic in him when that one look doesn't work right. And it's even on the little stuff. He'll double clutch passes, which is a super no-no. He stares down that one read really hard. And if that read isn't there, he'll just start to run no matter what. Watched one play, I think against Alabama, where there was a 3-man rush. The one look wasn't there. And he managed to immediately start running against a 3-man rush and still lose 5 yards. So it's just, you can see the panic there. But again, this is the same kind of thing with Anthony Richardson, where this dude earned a spot, I believe, halfway through the year. So this isn't a dude who came into the season getting super prepared and is really ready for the season at an SEC school too. So I want to see what happens this year. If he's still stuck in that kind of thing, it's going to be a tough sledding for him come draft time. But if he's already started to make those improvements, if he just needed the time with the playbook, we'll be able to see that right away. So that's kind of the big thing there. Like the offense, the numbers he has, when I looked at like his stat line to pick which games I wanted to watch, I was like, Jesus, he's really putting up numbers. And then I watch it, and a lot of the throws are like behind the line of scrimmage going for 55 yards. Okay, that's not really the same thing at all.
Yeah, our guy Velus Jones, we loved him, and then the Bears took him in the 3rd round. As far as like the decision making, the notes I have is telegraphs nearly every throw and locks on early and doesn't come off first read. Lacks anticipation, throws when it's open, not throws it open. And that just shows up over and over again. It's one thing to be a guy who gets locked on your first read a couple times, but he just doesn't have the anticipation. And again, he just
here's my question to that about the whole I feel like that's a critique that you could say about almost every quarterback. I don't see enough anticipatory throws. Is that not just the college? And I'm asking this as a question. Is this not just the college game these days, where you're not seeing the anticipatory throws and the anticipation. Oh my gosh, words. You don't see those throws on Saturday like you do on Sunday.
It's, you have a guy like Joe Burrow who like does do all that stuff, and that's why he was so special coming out of LSU. But it's more so than those other guys, like where it's just late. Like, it's we're not talking about, it's one thing on a deep over, like you're anticipating what the safety's doing. It's on slants where it's like, dude, just throw the slant, man. You're going to get it past that linebacker. That linebacker is not going to become a Madden player and just all of a sudden be glued to that wide receiver. So it's just simple stuff like that. I didn't have stats on this because college football actually does a bad job of keeping track of player fumbles. The games I watched, he was pretty careless with the ball under pressure when he did, like you run Grump, and would have the ball hanging out and fumble. So, we've got a quarterback who's had some fumble issues too. So I wanted to throw that one out there with Hendon Hooker. So my worry about Hendon Hooker is that a year from now, we're going to have the same thoughts and he's going to end up going in the third or fourth round and being like, I don't know. To be honest, I can see Hooker going up boards, but a part of me just thinks he might end up being like one of the best backups in the NFL for a long time.
I think I agree with that. Can we talk about him as a runner for a minute? I don't really love him as a runner. I think he likes himself as a runner more than I do. I just think he has bad decision-making with that. And I think that might break him. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of times where he's got the read on whether he's going to keep it or pitch it or, whatever, RPO, zone read. And I think he makes the wrong read just about every time. He loves to hold on to the ball and gain 1 yard. I also don't think he's that fast, or I could be blind. I only watched a couple games. One of them was against Alabama. So I just don't love him as a runner. I think he's okay. I think he has movement ability without really being a true dual threat, but I could be way off on that.
Yeah, I also think he has the ability as a runner, but like I don't come away like from watching him like, man, that threat that he has as a runner is something to be excited about. He's definitely got the ability and the mobility that you want for a quarterback in the NFL now.
Yeah, I liked him more than I thought I would, but I think at this point right now, if he doesn't improve his ability to go through progressions, it's going to be a no-go for me. I'm not ready for that at the NFL level, period. But right now, I give the kid from Boston College I'm a little bit more excited about than him.
I haven't watched him, so maybe we should have done Phil Jerkovich out of Boston College.
Hooker is second in the nation in missed tackles forced amongst quarterbacks since 2018. There's Malik Cunningham, 121, Sam Howell, 97, and then Hendon Hooker has 106. So, I mean, that doesn't mean that he's a good runner. It just means that he can avoid tackles.
He's almost as good as runner as Sam Howell.
Almost.
I didn't know that stat, though. If you guys want to bet on who's going to be the third or fourth QB, I don't know if you can bet on this stuff, but maybe look out for it and bet on some other signs. It's time to step up to the plate with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And new customers can bet just $5 on any game, get $150 in free bets no matter what, win or lose. Looking to turn another small bet into a big payday this baseball season? With DraftKings same-game parlays, you can do just that. Create your own parlay by combining multiple bets like which team will win, total runs, extra innings, more, and boom! You have a shot at an even bigger payout. Right now, if your same-game parlay doesn't hit, you can get a free bet back up to $10. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code JOHNBOY. New customers can make any $5 MLB bet and get $150 in free bets no matter what. That's promo code JOHNBOY. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. MLB trademarks used with permission. All right. So we're done with the quarterbacks for now. People only want to hear about the quarterbacks. I like talking about the other positions. So guess what? April... Let me look at it, Joseph.
Please, I don't want to. Let's not rush through it. Let's win some games.
I just want to win games.
The next time you'll hear us go in depth about the quarterbacks will be either April 3rd or March 31st because let's see, 1, 2, 3. 4.
Or you'll do some stuff on Talking Football. We'll do some stuff on Talking Football that could be rebranded into another name soon.
That's true. Let's talk about a guy next that I'm talking about him next because he's the guy I've known about the longest for this class. You remember, Tommy Tremble Remember Tommy Tremble?
Love Tommy Tremble.
Lost his job to this guy when this guy was a true freshman. And that's Notre Dame tight end Michael Mayer. Guy is supposed to be the next big thing, and I see why it's there. 6'4", 250 pounds. For Notre Dame this past year, he had 71 catches, 840 yards, 7 tutters. Here's the thing that stands out the most is he's a prototypical Y inline tight end who can actually block. So we'll talk about his receiving ability, but he can actually block. He would be the number one tight end in this previous class, which I guess wasn't saying too much, but like he can legitimately block, and it's we're not talking about Levine Toilolo where it's like he's a good blocking tight end. Like Michael Mayer is going to add he's going to be a big receiving threat. But the nice thing is like, you know what? This is a tight end that's going to go in the first round that you don't have to call him a willing blocker. He's just a good blocker. And I think that's kind of why he might be one of those first round tight ends that you can get behind.
I think he's pretty balanced. Since we're talking about him as a blocker, I don't want to say unimpressed because that would be a lie. I do think he's a very good blocker, but there are times when a 6'4", 250 pound man seems like he should be able to do a little bit more than what ends up happening. And I'm not really even sure why. Normally I would say, well, his pad level was too high, or he was in the wrong position, or his hand placement is bad. And I really can't place a mechanical thing that he's doing wrong. And he's not really losing the block either. It just feels like he should be able to get more drive when he isn't sometimes. And they're like sometimes in double team situations and they're not getting drive. But regardless, he's still a fantastic blocker. He gets in solid position. He has very good mechanics. And at the very least, stalemates guys and gets them out of the way. So there's that. And then on top of it, as a receiver, he's kind of a lumberer running the ball, but he really, 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 really impressed me with his ability to run routes. Just in general, he's got a very good understanding for what a route should be, when it should be cut. There's not a lot of wasted movement whatsoever. His cuts are still nice and sharp. He's got really smooth hands catching the ball. He transitions very well going north and south after the catch point, and he runs guys over. He's never going to really create separation with speed or anything like that. But he does it with his route running ability. The only other thing I could say with him as a pass catcher that I would like some improvement on is he doesn't really like attack the ball in the air the way I would like him to. He's going to be in contested catch situations at the NFL level, just based on his speed, I would say. And I would like to see him fight back towards the ball a little bit more, but that's such a light criticism because he is a good hands catcher.
Yeah, I mean, he catches really well through contact. There's plays where it's like, I can't believe he came up with that catch, like through all that traffic. I don't know how he had the concentration to do that. Here's where I do think his biggest issue might end up being, like you mentioned, is that versus zone, he knows leverage well. He knows where to work. Like he's good at that, but he doesn't have that speed or even the greatest like change of direction, even though like his routes are sharp versus man coverage. So I think he need to be able to really separate versus man coverage. He's going to have to become a great route runner, where right now he's like a solid route runner. Cause that's like the biggest issue I think he has, is he just versus man coverage, guys are able to stay in that hip of him.
I've never seen a tight end. Now I've only at least somewhat taken pride in my draft coverage since 2020. And this is the best route running tight end, creating separation tight end that I've seen. I mean, there are cornerbacks that are kind of going face to face with him, and yeah, they're not putting their hands on him or anything like that. But I mean, he's creating separation. Cornerbacks are right in his face, safeties are right in his face, and he is creating separation, in and out of his breaks. So, and then what I love most about his game is just after the catch. What he can do with the ball in his hands after the catch is just an absolute treat. I mean, he can either run around you, or he can run through you, or he can go over you and he can jump over you as well. I mean, it's a treat to watch.
Yeah, he's kind of like, I think since we've been doing this, like who's the best like inline tight end that we've seen the last few years? Kyle Pitts was obviously a great tight end, but he wasn't inline at all. Trey McBride was good, but he's not at Michael Mayer's level. I'm trying to, who was the number 2 tight end in the Kyle Pitts class?
I don't even remember. Kyle Pitts was like such a unicorn that like, who was he picked 4th? Like that doesn't happen.
Yeah. He's a wide receiver. He's not even a tight end. I was actually watching some Kyle Pitts stuff. It's like, this guy's not even a tight end. He's just a wide receiver who lines up like a little closer to the tackles than your traditional slot wide receiver. So yeah, Michael Mayer he was hyped coming into college. That's why I knew his name before all these guys. Like, he was hyped as like the next real deal, the next Grump type of guy. He's got some work to go to there. Like you said, maybe attacking the ball more so than letting it come. Like, he makes crazy concentration catches, but like you said, fighting back to the ball and maybe gaining some separation at the catch point. But I also think that's stuff he's going to get better at as well. So
he was a sophomore last year, had 2 games with 9 receptions, 2 games with 2 touchdowns, and then also 2 100-plus yard games. Finished the year with 840 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. And that was him as a sophomore. So,
yeah, I mean, like, tight ends don't put up production in college.
No.
Like, they just
Daniel
don't.
Bellinger. It's terrible production.
Like, let me look at, I'm even going to look up Kyle.
I think, wasn't
Pitts.
Pat Fryermuth the second tight end taken in the 2020
yes.
draft?
Yes,
So
yes.
Pat
He was
like
pretty good.
Fryermuth. But I like Mayer. I like Fryermuth a lot, but I like Michael Mayer more than Fryermuth.
Especially after the catch. I mean, Mayer.
I think they're
after the
fairly
catch.
comparable.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree with that. Fryermuth has actually turned into Fryermuth out of all these kind of tight ends that have been hyped up over the last couple of years, besides Pitts. He's actually turned into he's a very good NFL player.
Yeah, he got better as the year went along. He was a solid tight end for the Steelers.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what he can actually do with Pickett instead of Big Ben. So isn't it crazy the Steelers drafted a QB no one's excited about, but it's like a lot more exciting than what Big Ben was last year. So Kyle Pitts as a sophomore, 54 catches, 649 yards, 5 touchdowns. So Michael Mayer as a sophomore outperformed Kyle Pitts. So there's definitely like I was, as much as I knew Michael Mayer, when I actually looked at his stats, I was like, oh wow, he actually put up some really good stats for the tight end spot. It wasn't really great quarterback play from Jack Cohn, I think, was the quarterback for Notre Dame. So what do you guys think about drafting a tight end in the first round? Because you think about it on offense. Wide receiver, you can make the argument for, but you can also see us not being in a position to need to draft a wide receiver in the first round. Tackles, no. People say interior offensive line, maybe not. And the guys that we watch definitely aren't first round guys at this point, even though we may have missed somebody. Let's say we're not going quarterback, not going to take a running back. The one offensive position I could see maybe being the first is tight end, depending on where we're at.
I mean, I think it's got to be the right one. I mean, that's the thing where you can't have an Evan Ingram, but a tight end that can kind of come in here and do the things that Mayer does, do the things that Fryermuth does. It can change your offense. And Bobby, we've talked about that time and time again. Having that tight end that can be that blocker at the line of scrimmage, but also taking the top off of a defense. I mean, I think tight end, it can change the way that you can operate as an offense. It really does depend who we're talking about here and what their skill sets are.
People say you don't draft tight ends in the first round because you can get them later. I disagree with that to a point because, yes, like you see great tight ends who are drafted later. But if you identify one of those great tight ends,
yes,
like the tight ends have a huge impact. Look at the impact George Kittle has, Gronk has had, Kelsey has had. Those guys have a huge impact. So if you can identify those players, I have no problem drafting them. In the first round.
It's not the same as running back because you just named all those guys that, like, okay, yeah, Kittle, Gronk, whatever. When those guys go down, their replacements aren't doing the same thing. When running backs go down, their replacements can keep an offense afloat.
Right.
I don't feel too solid about taking a tight end in the first round, and I'll tell you why. If this is the best tight end in the class, he's not top 15 worthy, and that's kind of where I see us being. But otherwise, the theory is sound, right? From an offensive perspective, who else? What other position can you really see us going for? I mean, maybe wide receiver. I mean, I could see that.
We're going to talk about 2 wide receivers next. And maybe there's a guard that we didn't watch that we'll fall in love with. Honestly, I'm excited for the defensive preview. There's some dogs on defense in this class.
I think corner is probably where we're probably going in the first round.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about a wide receiver, though. And it's very interesting when you look at this guy's numbers. We'll talk about him as a player, but just numbers. And that is Ohio State wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba, 6 foot, 196 pounds. This past year in 2021, he had 95 catches, 1,600 yards and 9 touchdowns, 16.9 yards per catch. Now, he worked predominantly as a slot with Ohio State, Why was he in the slot? Well, they had Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave ahead of him. He was a true sophomore. Well, guess what? He had the most production of 2 top 15 wide receivers this last year. Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson both were in the top 15. He had more production than any of those guys. As a true freshman, he had more production than Jamison Williams, who also went in the top 15. Who was at Ohio State with those guys before transferring to Alabama. He had 550 more yards than Garrett Wilson this past year. 123 yards per game, 27 more yards per game more than those other guys, and more yards per catch than both of those guys. In the one game where both those guys didn't play, Garrett Wilson and Olave, that bowl game versus the Rose Bowl, I don't know, he had a measly fucking 350 yards versus Utah. I mean, sheesh. The production is insane. It's insane production when you think about the talent ahead of him before we even talk about him as a player, Justin.
I feel like there's a mold for wide receivers that Ohio State has. Not too glamorous, not too overly big, not too overly fast, but they run their routes well and they can separate. And something that's unique to Jackson, I feel, is that he is like his lateral movement and the ability to get in and out of his breaks. I mean, that I feel like is what really, really separates him. He isn't overly fast, isn't overly big, like I said, but I mean, just in and out of his breaks. I mean, it looks like he's just going and operating at a different speed, and that was really, really fun to watch.
I don't really have a whole lot to add. Justin, you kind of nailed it. Ohio State has a bunch of guys that were, a lot of their production kind of feels scheme oriented. I saw a thing, Ohio State has had 15 or 12 top 15 wide receivers in the nation, or like 12 of the last 15 top wide receivers in the nation have committed to Ohio State.
They have Marvin Harrison Jr. on that team, who's a beast.
It just feels like the scheme does a lot of the statistical work for them. They have a decent quarterback system. They have a solid, offensive system that just gets guys open and in space, and they just beat the crap out of some teams. You know what I mean? So I try not to look too much at production. It's very hard to ignore his, but you guys both nailed it. As a pass catcher himself, there's nothing too special, but it's the route running for me. He's meticulous. He's deliberate. He doesn't really have. The one thing that I'm not seeing is the second nature natural flow to him, which is that top 15 wide receiver in the draft kind of thing that some guy like Odell Beckham just has. He just runs very smoothly, very naturally. This dude, you can tell he's thinking about it, and he's got the steps down in his head. He knows exactly what he's doing, but it doesn't feel like this is the year where I'm going to expect him. You're going to see the natural, the flow to it, where it's just the little things. It's when to turn on the jets and the route and things like that. It's just not really consistent, but man, he just flies out of breaks and gets open.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the notes I have is, let's see, where did it have, can stop on a dime and smooth hips. It doesn't lose a speck of speed with change of direction. I said route running needs polish, but uses sell well, and elite using leverage. Can round his routes too often. But I also think he's not just go. I do think he tempos his route speeds well to work into those blind spots and find holes. Some issues I think he catches with his chest at times. I'm not sure if he has drop issues, but I just did notice he catches the ball with his chest a little too often. And there is some contested catches that he has, but he just doesn't look like he's ever going to be a go up and get it guy. You're not going to toss it to him. And then again, his speed isn't record break. He's not Jamison Williams as far as speed, but I think that change of direction. I think he can grow as far as polish. I'm excited. I'm interested to see if Ohio State's going to use him on the outside. They had so much production with him in the slot. Do they leave him in the slot? Throw Marvin Harrison Jr. on the outside and then, fill in the blank, what other Ohio State wide receiver. I'd like to see him play on the outside more. But like you mentioned, it is kind of, we usually don't talk about stats at all on these drafts, but it's his are just impossible to ignore. So do you guys like him more than the next guy we're going to talk about before Justin reads the ad?
No.
I don't think so, no.
Oh, I'm the only one that does. All right, Justin, why don't you read the ad, and then we'll talk about Kayshon Boutte.
Today's episode is sponsored by SeatGeek. Live events are back, which means you can get $20 off with your tickets at SeatGeek with promo code GIANTS. If you don't know what SeatGeek is, what are you doing? You might be dumb. They're a ticketing app that makes buying tickets super simple. We've got the app on our phones. Whether it's football, concerts, basketball, baseball, festivals, or more, SeatGeek puts tickets from all over the globe in one place to make buying simple. SeatGeek rates every ticket from 0 to 10 to make sure you are getting a good deal. Green means good, red means bad. Don't get the red, get the green. Every ticket on SeatGeek is backed by their buyer guarantee, so you can shop for tickets with confidence. Don't worry, we've got the hookup. Use code GIANTS for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. Grump, are you going to the USFL finals? You're going to make a trip?
Ohio? I might.
They're moving them from Alabama?
The playoffs are in Canton.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So you can get like USFL tickets on SeatGeek. I have looked this up previously because I thought that they would be in New Jersey when they first announced the USFL. I'm like, oh yeah, they're going to go in Jersey. They're probably going to play in MetLife. I'm going to get tickets. Nope. They're in Alabama. But they are on SeatGeek. You can get them if you want. Don't worry. Again, we got the hookup. $20 off your first purchase with the promo code GIANTS. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app. Code GIANTS for $20 off your first SeatGeek order. So are you going, Grump?
That is a solid no from me. I do my better work on the TV, you know.
Got it.
So okay. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Got it.
I'm missing out on all the sites of Canton, Ohio.
What site and promo code would you use if you were going?
Probably SeatGeek and I don't know, Talking Giants. What did you just say? I wasn't listening.
Code Giants.
$20 off.
That's what I said. I said Code Giants.
Yes, you did. I heard it.
The next time we'll all be in Canton, I think we should go to the Hall of Fame game when Eli Manning's inducted.
Yes.
So we'll go to the Eli Mannings. So next we got Kayshon Boutte, wide receiver at LSU. You guys like him more than Jackson. I kind of like Jackson a little more.
I like Boutte more.
But it's close. Played 6 games this past year, had 509 yards on 38 catches, 9 touchdowns. The year before, as a freshman, he had 45 catches, 735 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Lines up all over the place and obviously does it all well. Speed is good and change of direction is better. Here's where he stands out is he just gets a ton of yak. And it's not just simply like he's fast and he just runs away from guys.
Yep.
Like it's an all different types of way. Like he's elusive. He's a strong runner through contact. He can make guys miss, and when he's in the open field, he can beat you to the pylon.
Yep.
That's the thing that stands out to me the most, Justin. And it seems like that's why you love him the most.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I try and look for, since I'm not the smartest guy when it comes to evaluating, what do you do as a football player that rises above scheme? What do you do that rises above kind of what's just given to you, from the advantage of, hey, I'm an offense and I play for a team that's really, really good and everything is good around me and I'm good too. What can you do to rise above? And Boutte, man, I mean, he looks like he's a grown man. He is a grown man playing like a little boy's game. And he does it it doesn't look like he's working that
effortless.
Hard. And it's effortless. That's the right word to say, where if he's running his routes, he's not really busting his ass and he's moving too much and he's flailing his body around. No, he's a calm, cool, in control player, but he's playing grown man football out there, and he's not just a possession guy that's going to fall down. He's going to have these big explosive plays, and honestly, this doesn't happen too often with me, because when I'm watching one particular player, I need to be watching that particular player. My eyes can't be veering off. I get too distracted easily. So I was watching Ed Ingram during the pre-draft process, and it was just, oh my God, Kayshon Boutte, especially against Auburn, just making play after play after play after play, big play, big play. I'm like, who is this cat? So really, 99% more of the players that I've come across, Boutte has stood out, and he's popped off the screen more when I'm trying to watch another player. So I'm very, very excited to see what he can do this year.
This is probably my lowest level of analysis of all time, but can we talk about how, just his face, he looks like Ahmad Bradshaw? Did you guys notice
I don't
that?
look at his face. I'm a big. I didn't see his face, to be honest.
I always go
You're
on
a big Bobby? Finish that
I'm
thought.
a big not look at a guy's face.
Well, I'm about to look at his face right now. Does he look like Ahmad Bradshaw?
Tell me what you think.
Can I be a jerk and just say no?
You can.
I'm gonna say
I went to the LSU website to get his numbers basically, okay. and his picture on there. He was just kind of like smiling. I was like, Jesus, he looks like Ahmad Bradshaw.
Well, I'm gonna find LSU Athletics.
While you're looking that up.
Oh wait, I looked at the wrong picture. His face does like that is a face Bradshaw would make. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the only picture of his face I've seen. Here there is
great
one kind of thing that's kind of silly about him. And I don't know if this is just a couple of games I watched, but he kind of falls a lot, like not with the ball in his hands, just kind of trips over his own feet a little bit from time to time. That's like I guess my biggest knock on him, because I saw it more than once, and I mean, can't have that. It's not even at the break point. He was just kind of tripping off the line. But I do like the way he runs the ball, runs the routes. More than anything, I was surprised by, a 6 foot, 195 pound or 200 pound wide receiver, and his blocking ability. I know that's like not really that important, but he's more than just willing. He's like an aggressive play. He just really launch into dudes. He's not going to win a whole lot of times because, like I said, he's only like 200 pounds soaking wet. But I was really surprised by that. Otherwise, I really do like the way that he runs around. He's nice and smooth. It's just difficult to grade LSU players from last year. So the team sucked so much, especially the offensive side of the ball. I'm really just looking forward to see what he does this year. I'm giving him basically a clean slate, and I'm going to say he can do all the things in the right system.
Yeah, as far as his route running, I think he sells vertically really well. And somewhere where that shows up, and LSU did a lot, was curl routes. Like, he ran curl routes really well. Like, he was able to get separation on those curl routes on a route that doesn't breed a lot of separation. He was able to consistently sell vertical. There's a couple things that are keeping me from putting him ahead of Jackson, though. In contested situations, he has drops. He doesn't. Sometimes he looks like he lacks the concentration to bring those catches in tight situations. I just think I'd like to see him go up and get it a little more too. And he didn't face it a lot, but there were some press reps that I saw, and he couldn't get off the line of scrimmage. And there's not a lot of them, but it's like, man, that worries me a little bit. It's like those little type of things. Like, man, there's like the only times I saw you really pressed up, man, like that corner was able to take advantage of you and just keep you to the line of scrimmage, like where it looked like it was almost a blocking rep. So there's a couple of things that worry me, but like you mentioned, the LSU was kind of a joke last year, so it'll be interesting to see how Brian Kelly works with those cats next year. So that's Kayshon Boutte. Next, I'm excited about this guy, and this is 2 years in a row. There's a guy that's no one's name I haven't heard a lot out of Utah. I fell in love with Devin Lloyd last year, and I kind of fallen in love with the Utah tight end, Dalton Kincaid, 6'4", 242 pounds, had 500 yards and 8 touchdowns. He led college football tight ends in yards per catch with 14.2, which I was surprised that was a high number. I figured there'd be some tight end who had like 25 yards per catch or something crazy. He is a converted wide receiver, but I only knew that because I read it. But he's got really good athleticism and better agility. As far as, his size, like he does need to fill out his frame a little more, but he has the fire to be a solid blocker. I hate using the term willing blocker, but he is a willing blocker. He does have some really good blocking reps, but I wouldn't call him a good blocker. But I do, he has the fire to be a good blocker. Like he fires into blocks. I mean, there were some reps against Kayvon Thibodeau that I was watching when he played Oregon. It's like he did a decent job versus Kayvon here. But the thing that shows up the more is just the burst off the line of scrimmage. Like he bam, that ball snapped. He's into his route, and he's quick, and he runs the full route tree as a tight end, whether you line him up in line or split him out. And they did a bunch of 2 tight end sets at Utah. His route running has good sell. His cuts, we talk about like sometimes the guys round him out. His are bam, quick. Like just bam, snap the hips, and he's flat down that line with his cuts. Although sometimes there could be a little too much stutter and too many steps getting into it and slow down. And here's the last thing I'll say before I throw it to you, Grump. There were some plays I saw in the scramble drill that I really liked. There was one play, I can't remember what game I was watching, but the QB, the play breaks down, the QB scrambles. He turns upfield, the corner turns up with him. He gives him the push, turns back, and he's the outlet for like a 7-yard catch. Like, so just good instincts in that stuff. So, and I'll just finish off my notes on him. He's like, I think he has great hands overall. Not the best leaper, but it does contort his body really well in high points in contested situations. I really like Dalton Kincaid, man. He's He's a fun tight end. Like, I think him and Trey McBride would be battling for tight end 1 in this last class.
I really like Dalton Kincaid. I didn't know who the hell this kid was until you told me to do this. This dude, a lot of the skill position guys, in fact, I think all of the skill position guys that we talked about are 4 or 5 star recruits. I don't think this kid was an any star recruit. I didn't look it up, but I didn't see it flashed about and branded all over his name when I just Googled him. So there's that. He's a San Diego transfer. He's played at San Diego State for 2018, 2019 before going to Utah in 2020. Shout out Daniel Bellinger. Man, I don't really know his speed, but he looks to me like he's on the faster side for tight ends. I don't know if you guys know his projected 40 time.
I don't know, but he's fast. He's definitely fast. Like it shows up right away.
I would say one of the things that made me really like him is that he is such a smooth pass catcher. He has really natural hands, and he has a really excellent ability to catch on the run without jumping or like, he catches very fluidly, sometimes at awkward angles, on the move, down really low. He just catches the ball and turns up the field. It's like not that hard for him. And I guess that comes from being a converted wide receiver, which makes me wonder why he wasn't good enough as a wide receiver. Or maybe they just thought because he was big, he could just be a fantastic tight end. I would say that I was impressed with him as a blocker as well. We didn't talk about that, I don't think, at all, but I think he's pretty decent. I think he gets really good position. I think he is more than willing to deliver the hits as a blocker. You did say that. You said that you don't like saying willing blocker, but what I was impressed with, a lot of tight ends don't do this. He drives his legs. A lot of tight ends just kind of get in position and they just kind of torque guys out of the way. He drives his legs. He'll move people. And that is just not common among college tight ends. So I came away really impressed with Dalton Kincaid. He seems too good to be true.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see how much he develops as a blocker. Like if, like you mentioned, like he's very willing. He does it. He has some good technique, even though his feet are a little too skinny sometimes. Like you can tell sometimes when it's a run play, his feet get very skinny because he wants to get low and drive through a defensive lineman or whoever. So as far as like that, I want to see him develop as a blocker, and that's why, if this was his last year and he was coming out in this past draft class, you'd be a little worried about some of the blocking stuff, but he's got a year to develop. Tight ends do develop as blockers. So very excited for Dalton Kincaid out of Utah. He's definitely one of those guys. I did had no preconceived notions of him. Just like, all right, let's do a tight end. This guy's rated the second or third, and I fell in love with him. All right, let's move on to a couple interior offensive linemen. Before that, we got an advertisement.
We have an ad. Grump, you're you're a stylish man.
Wow, you knew where I was going with this.
You're a stylish man. Are you a confident dresser?
Talk about your wiener.
We're gonna work up to that. We're work down, I guess.
You can buy me dinner first. I am. I've had my wardrobe criticized on your show. Apparently my fit is the same every single time. But you know what? You know how you're wearing a great outfit like this and everything just looks right and your confidence is soaring? You don't care what people in the comments on Talking Giants say.
No.
You can walk into a room knowing that you're on your A game and you know your draft stuff and you don't have the draft order all wrong live on the internet. And if you've been struggling with PE, Roman can give you that same feeling in the bedroom. Who wouldn't want to feel like a draft guru in the bedroom?
Thick thighs save lives. Thick wieners make better relationships.
That's very true. And sweet and touching. Very touching. Roman's swipes are clinically proven to help you last longer in bed, which, of course, is the key to happiness. These treatments are safe, they're effective, and they're used by millions of men. Millions of men haven't been wrong before, right? Free 2-day shipping. I mean, I haven't listed a single downside yet. There is no reason to not be confident. And if you want to be as confident as me wearing this shirt on the internet, you can get roman.com/world today. Go to the website. If you're approved, you'll even get $10 off of your first order. That's getroman.com/world.
Wow. That was incredible.
I'm a confident man. What can I say?
Incredible ad read.
Yeah, I can't believe how confident you are in your reading, even with how bad it is.
Wow.
So
Rude.
You mean the product? Get out of here.
No, the product's
Would
great.
I be this confident?
I just don't know if you know how to read the English language.
Wow. I thought that was great.
I just feel like being an asshole right now. So I got to bully somebody.
You can't shake this confidence, man. Can't shake it.
Is that a Bucks logo on? What is the thick thighs? What is that like for? Like, what is that?
So this is a New Jersey General shirt, my friend. I'm probably one of 3 people who own this shirt. This is Darius Victor.
That's the guy I saw score a touchdown, number 9, right?
I don't know his number. I got to be honest with you. He's bald. I can tell you that. So we're buddies. Former Saints player as well. He was on the practice squad and couldn't crack the lineup behind Kamara, and I think Ingram was still on the team then. But yeah, this is his shirt, and I think he bought it for his whole offensive line, and they threw it on the website, and I was like, I have to buy this. There's a chance that this shirt doesn't exist in like 6 months. I have to have it.
Yeah, if you watch any USFL games, you have to get some type of merchandise out of it so you can say that you watched it, you know. All right, let's talk about some interior offensive linemen. No tackles this year. Now, unfortunately, I didn't find one I fell in love with like last year. I fell in love with Kenyon Green on our way to early draft preview. I was like, this guy's real deal. I want him in the top 15. But first, we're going to talk about Notre Dame center Jarrett Patterson, 6'4", 307 pounds. Has the ideal size for the center spot. I think Jarrett Patterson is going to be a solid NFL offensive lineman, and again, he has a year to get better. Like I'll kind of just read through some of my notes of him. His athleticism is above average, but not great. Think his strength is good, but he needs more in the upper body. Core is strong. Base could be wider, but it's strong and consistent. Pass pro is very solid. Never a victim to bull rush. Fairly quick feet and ability to demure, but needs to ID better. Lunges with heavy shoulders, but his core and base can save him at times. Needs to shoot hands rather than clamp, but solid punch and pass and run. Feet come quickly in the run game, but needs to roll his hips rather than lean. Doesn't get the movement and needs to be better with hat placement. So, like, those were the notes that I have. And to me, that sounds like a guy who could be a solid offensive lineman, but he's not the interior offensive line that you fall in love with. He's not super sloppy. A guy like Wyatt Davis. By the way, a little pat on the back. Remember how much heat I got for saying that Wyatt Davis wasn't very good? And he might be cut by the Vikings after year 1. But anyways, so I mean, what did you guys think for the Notre Dame product, Jarrett Patterson? I just thought he was kind of solid. Like he's like the Liam Eichenberg of centers.
Leaner. That was my first note. And whenever I put an asterisk next to something, that means that I'm like unsure, not about the evaluation, but just about like, ooh. So leaner was one of my main notes.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with both of you. I think you guys both said it. He has a tendency to lunge and play with his head over his feet, like way over his feet. I think it tends to show up more in the pass game because, like you said, he doesn't fire his arms out the way I don't know. Like you said, he just kind of latches on. Like it's when the guy isn't right there in his face, he starts to reach and lean, and that's when he gets into a lot of trouble. I will say he does some things really nice. I like how quickly he gets out of his stance. For a guy who's snapping the ball is like pretty damn good. But then he just kind of gets his arms outstretched and is like waiting for contact. Like, dude, hit somebody. Are you a football player or not? And I think a lot of that is his problem is not just going out there and hitting dudes, right? I would like to see him more aggressive. He loses hand fighting battles because they're just out there to be smacked out of the way. And I think I watched 3 plays in a row where the same defender just chopped his hands out of the way and just swam right past him. And it 3 straight plays, the exact same move, same side, everything. So that's a real problem for me. And I know that hand fighting is one of those things that, if guys have developed hands at the senior level, yeah, but it's really rare that guys are already developed hand fighters at the college level. For me, anyway, it's usually the first round guys are the dudes that do that, and some of them even can't do that.
Yeah, for him, it's just for him to improve. Like the main thing, so obviously, you got to just get better overall, but just being able, like you say, like you guys said, I think getting his base a little wider, which will give him less lean, and just when he's in pass pro, push those shoulders back and shoot those hands. And then in the run game, it's just, I don't know how much he can get better at that Cause I just don't know how flexible his hips are. Like the guy we're going to talk about next has like really flexible hips. He's more of an athlete. But Jarrett Patterson, I think he'll be a solid NFL offensive lineman, but nothing to write home about at this moment. All right, last guy for the 2023 way too early offensive draft preview. Don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's the Michigan center, transfer from Virginia, so this will be his first year at Michigan. Olusegun Oluwatimi. And now I'm pretty sure I got Oluwatimi right, but I don't know about the first name. 6'3", 310 pounds. Like I said, he's a transfer from Virginia. The thing that shows up the most, he's athletic and flexible center. He's able to get out and move. He's got good hips. He rolls through blocks. But I do think he needs to add some upper body strength. But as far as interior offensive lineman goes, like he has the athleticism that you want. And in the pass game, like he has the strength to anchor guys. Here's where I think his biggest issue in pass pro is he has kind of like a soft shoulder. Like if guys get to that shoulder, it just opens up too easily, and it's like, man, you should be winning this rep, and they're getting the better of you, but you don't see the bad reps either. But you see him move guys in the run games. Like his base is really good with good pad level. And there's things that he needs to fix. Like he has a false step and he needs to fire into the run block better. So, the beginning of the block isn't great, but he's good at adjusting, rolling those hips, and just really getting movement. And then as far as, like out in space in the wide zone, he gets out there and moves. Getting to the second level linebackers, he's getting there and sealing guys off. Now he struggles in the wide zone when he's covered up, and he has a hard time getting his hat on the right side and working through that block. And that's where I talk about the upper body strength. In the pass game, I think he's really good at IDing stuff, but something I want to see is I want to see him be more aggressive looking for work. Like he gets good depth. That's what I want more so than being, super aggressive, but he gets good depth. But it's like, man, go help. Like lay a hit. You got this. Lay a hit, where sometimes he just kind of places his hands on guys. But he has that athletic ability to sneak into like that early second round, I think, for interior offensive line. Like that's what teams are looking for. And he's not undersized either. 6'3", 310.
So I actually am really, really, really excited for this dude. And I'm the one who suggested him, so this is going to sound like false, but I didn't know that much about him. I was just looking up guys that we could look into. And here's why I'm excited about him. I don't know where he played at high school on the offensive line. He played offensive line, but I don't know where. He went to Air Force. He didn't play any games at Air Force. Transferred to Virginia, where he played in 2019, 2020. I don't think he played anything in 2019 because of the transfer rules at the time. But 2020 and 2021, he's in Virginia. Now he's going to Michigan, where he's going to play with Jim Harbaugh, right? And everything you're talking about, I feel like are very experience-driven issues that he has and coaching issues. Like that's not physical trait things that he has. And he is slowly moving up the coaching tree here. I'm excited to see what he's able to do with the superior coaching at Michigan. I hope there's no like Virginia people around here that are going to chop off my head for saying that, but I really, it's okay. So you say he has like a soft shoulder. I wasn't really sure what it was. My big note on him in the passing game was from time to time, it just seems like he struggles against what appears to be inferior strength. And I couldn't really put my finger on why. And I thought maybe his pad level was a touch high. I didn't really know, but if it's an upper body strength thing, a soft shoulder, I'll look into that.
I don't even know if it's upper body strength. It was just, there was times where a guy would get to, into like that half man relationship, and he just too easily allowed that guy to like get that and like open up his hips with it. But it's definitely fixable. Like you said, I didn't view it as a strength thing. Like maybe I did when I said it needs to add upper body strength. But it's just like almost more urgency when that happens. Like when he's head up with the guy, he's fine as far as strength wise. But it's just when a guy gets that half man relationship, it's almost like he's too content letting that guy maybe get up the arch of the pocket instead of like really moving his feet over. He has the foot speed for it, but he's like almost too like content with that.
Okay. That makes sense. Just like a lack of urgency generally, or not reacting in time. I will say as a run blocker, he's insane.
He moves.
I was watching him just all on his own, one-on-one blocks, just pushing dudes 10 yards downfield. It's like the dramatically overdone scenes from like The Blind Side when he's like in high school and he's just like throwing a guy over a fence or whatever. Like it kind of almost looks like he's just taking dudes for a walk. And that's why I'm excited, because you can see all the raw traits are there. He's slowly worked his way up. Now he's going to the big school with the big coach. I'm expecting to see these things corrected. I think he may surprise people, but I could be wrong. I'm wrong a lot, and you're way better at O-line stuff than me. So,
well, I'm excited. I'm definitely more excited for him than Jarrett Patterson. And like you said, working with like Jim Harbaugh saw something in him to take a Virginia transfer and make him the starting center from day one. Like, he's their starting center in the Blue Maze game. He was the starting center. So I'm definitely excited for. Like, I think he has a much higher ceiling. And if you took me, like, who do you draft now? Oluwatimi or Jarrett Patterson? I'm taking Oluwatimi or Timi. I think I pronounced that right. So, but that was like the one thing. But like you said, in the run game, he moves, dude. So maybe it's not necessarily a strength issue. I just sometimes it just seems like he's lacking urgency in pass pro a little bit.
I screwed you. I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you that he goes by Olu for a first name. Just OLU. I didn't know until just before we did this, but I forgot to tell you.
Olu. So that's good. Justin, you got anything before we close this out?
Oh, I just held in a sneeze. Excited to see him play at Michigan. Different bowl game in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. All right, we appreciate you guys. We'll be back on Friday with our defensive draft preview. Football Grump will be on here. Check out his podcast, the Just Giants podcast. It's on
Link
YouTube.
Link is in the description.
There we go. Check out his YouTube. Check out his podcast. All that good stuff. We appreciate you guys. Enjoy Way Too Early draft preview, and tell us some guys that we missed. Until then, and not quarterbacks. We know which quarterbacks we missed. Until then, let's go Big Blue.